All right, we're going to start anyway, damn it. All right, here we go. Welcome to Reset Race, where we talk about race, politics, and how those two things intersect and impact those of us who are descended from slaves here in the United States. Us American Negroes, US Freedmen, whatever you want to call us, that's who we are. Well, almost everything you want to call us, depending on who you are. In any event, welcome to the show.
Don't call us bringing salt to a coalition when they ask for sugar. So damn sure don't call us salt. God damn it.
Yeah. We do things on our terms. You are correct. All right. So with that said, you just heard her. So we're gonna let her introduce herself. Sam, talk to the people.
I'm gonna be quick today because John has to leave us early, so I want to get as much of him on this episode as usual. So you can find me at me 17 trillion. I don't know how much longer I'm actually gonna keep interacting with you people over there though, because some of y'all getting on my goddamn nerves. Don't talk to me if you listen. I'm sending you information. Don't talk to me until after you read this information, because you're talking to me about shit that I've already sent you information on. So please read the information and then we can talk further from there. So that's where I'm at. I'm having fun on the show. I love it here. Some people have reached out about being on the show. You know, we're getting back to you as we can. And yeah, that's what it is. So thanks for being here. Like, comment, share, subscribe. At me 17 trillion while I'm still paying attention. That's about it.
All right, bet. Thanks, Sam. John, talk to the people.
Yeah. This is John C. Average American Negro, just a regular ass nigga. They just found me like, yo, you like politics? I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to get some chicken. They just got me. But anyway, though, like, yeah, I'm here back with the fam. Happy to be back with the Reset Race family. Still, Penny's tape is still coming soon.
Yes.
Make sure that you go like and subscribe. Watch this Reset Race. Watch the whole network. We got Bit of Those TV. Got a lot of other things coming up. And yeah, I'm just happy to be here, man. Happy to be here, represent for my people, man. Like I said, I don't want nothing from this, man. You can ask about me, man. Like, I'm in this shit for real. Like, I'm really genuine about this. A lot of people be bullshitting. I don't bullshit, man. If I wanted to make some bread, I can go do some other things, man. But I'm here talking with these three smart ass Negroes, trying to get my shit right. So happy to be here. Let's go back to the grill, man. Word up.
No doubt, John. Appreciate it. Mud, last but not least.
Yeah, they call me Mud. You can find me on my social media at Lineage, Twitter, Instagram, and Clubhouse. But I don't know. I might be done with Clubhouse.
Oh, you finally coming to the dark side, Mud.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, but I'm almost.
You got a whole show. You don't need Clubhouse. Anything you want to say, you can say on this show, or you can say on Bitter Dose. Way better than being bothered with people who ain't paying attention and ain't learning on Clubhouse.
Yeah, it's a lot of recycling the same shit over and over again.
Sorry, Mud. Go ahead. I'm just glad you stop. You gonna stop giving them that energy, because we need more energy over here. We got, me and you got plenty of work.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm about done with social media altogether. But
that's funny.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
That's funny. Come midterms, the only people gonna be on social media is MG cussing people out till they steal his account.
Hey, I got to get my grumpy old man on somewhere. I can't do it at home. I get beat up.
Anyways, yeah, we're still doing the work over here. Bit of Those TV, everything. The Penny's tape. We got a lot of projects going. Yeah, just look forward to it. And let's get started with the show.
Oh, and also those of y'all who want to help us, if you have time, we need help. Like, money's great, but your time is actually more valuable at this moment. So even if it's like we need
time and skills.
Yeah, we need researchers. Like, even if you don't have a lot of skills, you can read an article and you can start looking through articles and seeing stuff that's important for us and sending it to us. Like, that's something that you can do real simple. Or when you see videos that you think are valid to, what we're doing, like, send it to us. It's like, that's like that's simple stuff without having skills. For those of y'all who have skills, we really need y'all to reach out. Like I said, we'll get around to getting the Patreon stuff. All that stuff's going to come, but we're not really in this to make money. We're in this to get the message out. So if you can help us actually by helping us, like with your actual skill set or anything like that, we'll take that right now before we get the other monetary stuff up, because we're getting to it, but it just isn't the main thing on our list.
Thank you, Sam. And like John said, I'm sorry, Mo, what you got?
No, go ahead, MG.
Okay. So as like John said, like, subscribe, and share. You can do that right now to help us. Definitely share. There's gonna and stay out of our comments with BS. Other than that,
they can't help themselves. You know they coming with
that's the truth. Because you can't say Sam's a white supremacist and hates poor white people. Y'all got to do better. Like, y'all got to do better, because I care about poor whites. I actually care about all poor Americans. I want reparations. And at the same time, I want y'all to do wealth redistribution, UBI, federal jobs guarantee. I want $25 an hour, 15, you can miss me. And I want Medicare for all with that shit too. Even with Medicare for all, I still want $25 an hour. I don't care.
Yeah.
I want all it. So I want all those goodies for you, but I want you to support me getting reparations too. And if you can't do that, I don't care. Like, and you can say, well, no other group is saying that we shouldn't, listen, I don't fight against you. I don't fight. We did not do one tweet against the Medicare for all march, but we didn't do one tweet for it either, because I'm not going to spend my Black social political capital on stuff when you're not bringing my issues to your coalitions. Now, if you want to bring your issues to my coalitions, I'll start showing up for you. But until y'all start giving us some reciprocity, love don't live here anymore.
Listening to Reset Race, you're now tuned in to Reset Race. You're listening to Reset Race, you're now tuned in to Reset Race. What? Put them back on the grill again, we grilling them. Put them back on the grill again, we grilling them. Put them back on the grill again, we grilling them. Back on the grill again, we grilling them. You're listening to Reset Race. ADOS need reparations to make America great. You're tuned in to Reset Race. We no longer starving while others eat off our plate. No. You're listening to Reset Race. We focused on our justice claim. We know what is at stake. You're tuned in to Reset Race. You'll find out we're really about justice and really who fake. Lineage go back to US Southern plantations. Lineage, Jim Crow and mass incarceration. Redlining lynchings, we are old from this nation. You're not about justice if you ain't for reparations. MG the wise one, cousin mother intellectual. Samantha bringing fire, anti-black, we pressing you. No permanent friends and no permanent enemies. The backbone of the country, the win. You need our energy. You gon' see. Listening to Reset Race. You now tuned in to Reset Race. You're listening to Reset Race. You're now tuned in to Reset Race. Put them back on the grill again, we grilling them. Put them back on the grill again, we grilling them. Put them back on the grill again, we grilling them. Back on the grill again, we grilling them. You're listening to Reset Race. ADOS need reparations to make America great. You're tuned in to Reset Race. We no longer starving while others eat off our plate. No. You're listening to Reset Race. We focused on our justice claim. We know what is at stake. You're tuned in to Reset Race. You'll find out we're really about justice and really who fake.
Today, our old friends at the Hill, even though Saga and Crystal are gone, the Hill is on their bullshit. It's all right. I haven't heard anything. They're on YouTube, so I haven't checked them. They ain't popping up like they used to. But at the same time, the Hill had a gentleman named Kenny Hugh. Kenny's XU. I don't know how you pronounce it, so I'm not going to try. Yeah. Our friend Kenny with his big old forehead.
He ain't my friend.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, on the 16th of July, they released this critical race theory cannot be true thing on the Hill website.
Because it's showing on their YouTube page, because they knew people would have murdered the goddamn comments in this shit.
Yes, absolutely. So we're gonna talk. And this is just so you can prep your brain. This is instructional, right? Because not everybody who's non-white is an ally. They have to prove that through action and word, right? And I don't care what's in your thoughts, right? I don't care, right? You can hate me all you want as long as you're in this coalition fight for what we need.
I don't care what's in your heart either. Thoughts, heart, none of that shit.
None of that shit. I need actions and words. That's what I need. Okay, so let's get it popping.
Case is a moment of reckoning that exposes some of the contradictions and fallacies of our current racial thinking. It is for this reason also a moment of possibility. So some facts about the case. In November 2014, a newly formed organization, Students for Fair Admissions, filed suit against Harvard in federal district court alleging that the university discriminated against Asian Americans in undergraduate admissions, and asking the court to prohibit Harvard from considering race at all in its admissions process. In response, Harvard denied that it discriminates against Asian Americans and declared its intention to fully defend its holistic admissions program, famously praised by Justice Powell in the Bakke decision for using race as just one factor in trying to create a diverse student body. So a brief look at the rallies that accompanied the opening of the trial.
Holding signs that say "Stop Harvard's Asian Quota," a group of Asian Americans led by Edward Bloom of Students for Fair Admissions took to Copley Square to protest Harvard University's admissions process. Bloom and others are suing the famed institution for discrimination.
Harvard systematically raises the bar for Asian Americans and systematically lowers it for whites, African Americans, and Hispanics. We allege that Harvard has a quota that limits the number of Asians.
Ed Bloom, who is this man and why is he leading a lawsuit on behalf of Asian American students? Harvard's initial brief argues that Students for Fair Admissions is a shell organization created by Ed Bloom as a vehicle to advance a right-wing political agenda. This agenda is sometimes politely referred to as rolling back the race-conscious reforms of the civil rights era. But if we refuse the euphemisation, what we arrive at is Ed Bloom and his right-wing colleagues want to return us to the status quo ante of Jim Crow. As a point man for the right's long-term multi-million-dollar campaign to achieve this goal, Bloom has filed more than 24 lawsuits challenging affirmative action and voting rights. His big win was Shelby County v. Holder, the 2013 case, Supreme Court case, where the court eviscerated the Voting Rights Act of 1965 by effectively disabling federal preclearance of changes to state election laws. Practices of voter purging and voter suppression have expanded in the wake of this ruling, just as we would expect, with consequences for the 2016 and 2018 elections. After the Supreme Court upheld race-conscious admissions in Fisher v. Texas, a case I'll briefly talk about later, a case that Bloom was the driving force behind, Bloom regrouped and came up with a new plan, finding Asian Americans to use in the fight against affirmative action. He formed Students for Fair Admissions. The two other board members were Abigail Fisher of Fisher v. Texas and her father, Richard Fisher, and he went looking for Asian American plaintiffs. Okay, so they formed this organization, Fisher, and Bloom. They formed a website called harvardnotfair.org, and they used photos like this to recruit Asian American students as plaintiffs. So as you can see on this picture, were you denied admission to Harvard? It may be because you're the wrong race. And then at the bottom, tell us your story. Does this mean that the right suddenly loves Asian Americans? Does it? It might be more accurate to say the right is willing to do what is necessary to maintain a negrophobic social order, even acknowledging that Asians are discriminated against and admitting more Asian students into institutions of higher education. Strikingly, the Student for Fair Admissions complaint argues not only that Asian Americans are a minority, too, but that they are the most discriminated against minority, doubly burdened by white hostility on the one hand and affirmative action programs designed to help Black people on the other. Asian Americans, the complaint suggests, have displaced Blacks as the most disadvantaged group in society. They are, in effect, the new Blacks. It is often said that Asian Americans are used as pawns by the right in affirmative action issues. But in fact, as the video clip shows, Asian Americans are standing alongside Ed Bloom, front and center in the fight to dismantle Harvard's affirmative action program. The Asian American Legal Foundation, a Chinese American organization formed to bring the Brian Ho anti-affirmative action lawsuit against the San Francisco Unified School District in the 90s, along with the Political Action Committee 8020, filed a complaint with the U.S. Departments of Education and Justice charging Harvard with discrimination against Asian students. This complaint was meant to work in tandem with the lawsuit against Harvard, and the complaint quotes the Harvard brief at great length, the Students for Fair Admissions brief at great length. And by filing the complaint with the U.S. Departments of Justice and Education, they've brought the Trump administration into this legal and political battle. In addition, as I'll show, the amicus briefs submitted by the Asian American Legal Foundation in recent Supreme Court cases craft an argument about anti-Asian bias that serves as a template for the Students for Fair Admissions lawsuit against Harvard many years later. What we are witnessing is the emergence of a political phenomenon that has just begun to attract scholarly attention, the mobilization of conservative, professional, middle to upper class, first-generation Chinese Americans via Chinese language apps and social media networks into a formidable anti-affirmative action fighting force on a national scale. Although they represent only a small minority of Asian Americans, these activists claim to speak for all of them, and their dramatic confrontational rhetoric and modes of organizing have mostly drowned out the voices of the majority of Asian Americans who support affirmative action. With an unapologetic Asians first, actually Chinese first position, they scoff at the coalition building commitments embraced by Asian American activists for the past half century. It is the explosive convergence of this nascent Chinese immigrant nationalism with an older conservative white nationalism that is driving anti-affirmative action politics today.
Book, An Inconvenient Minority, The Attack on Asian American Excellence and the Fight for Meritocracy, Kenny Xu examines, quote, affirmative action, the false narrative of American meritocracy, and America's unease about a minority, Asian Americans, potentially upending them.
Now joining us today to discuss is author and president of Color Us United, Kenny Xu. Kenny, welcome. Thanks so much for joining the show.
Thank you so much, Emily and Ryan, for having me.
So your subtitle says a lot about the thesis of the book, but if you could just sort of walk us through the...
Is this dude an Asian supremacist? Is that what we look at? Is that what we're looking at here?
Can we watch this?
I'm just saying that title is mom. Go ahead.
Oh, no, it gets better. Y'all haven't seen this. So for everybody who's watching, I stopped at the point where he says that the Black people have bad test scores in school because we have behavioral issues. At that point, I shut this shit the fuck off because I wanted y'all to get my initial authentic, but this motherfucker needs a Klan hood.
Argument that you make in the book, that would be fantastic.
So we have a narrative right now that posits that white people are at the top and Black people are at the bottom, but what are they going to do with Asian Americans? Because Asian Americans do not fit this narrative. They are the inconvenient minority. They were historically discriminated against. They face discrimination. 80% of Vietnamese Americans arrived in this country without even knowing English. And within one generation, they were able to turn their kids into college graduates at a higher rate than even white Americans.
So what do we make of the persistent figuration of Asian Americans as spoilers in the Bakke case? Should we turn, as Asian Americans often do, to the model minority myth? Is that what is going on here? The standard critique of the model minority myth goes something like this. Asian Americans are presented as being more successful than they are in order to drive a wedge between Asians and Blacks, to divide and conquer minorities for the benefit of whites. The model minority myth is a white supremacist ideology that must be debunked. Its blanket assertion of success exaggerates Asians' socioeconomic status and conceals the fact that, in fact, Asian national origin groups vary quite widely, right, in terms of their socioeconomic measures. To sum it up, the critique of the model minority myth says Asians aren't doing all that well. Not all Asians are doing well, and Asians are minorities too. But even when we keep all of this in mind, there's still something here that seems to need explaining. Why do many Asian Americans fare better than Blacks despite being subject to past and present discrimination? Why were Asian Americans the only minority that was admitted to UC Davis Medical School in significant numbers in the general program? Why does the discrimination underrepresentation link seem to break down with Asians? So what I want to suggest to you today is that focusing on the model minority myth as an explanation for what is going on here will actually disable us from answering these questions. This is because the critique of the model minority myth is flawed as an analysis in at least two ways. It reads the valorization of Asians over Blacks as merely rhetorical or discursive, and thus obscures the fact that this valorization has been enacted as social structure for nearly 2 centuries. Asians and Blacks have been assigned from the start to distinct positions in the US racial order, and recognizing and naming this fact is a prerequisite for understanding differential group outcomes. The problem is not a myth that we can correct or debunk. The problem is structural positionality. The second issue, and we'll come back to this again, is that this critique reproduces the logic of minority equivalency that I've already mentioned. Okay, 20 years ago almost, in 2000, I wrote the following. The assertion of formal interminority equivalences in the face of persistent interminority differentials in status, privilege, and power facilitates the white project of using Asian Americans against blacks. Okay, I'm going to scroll down again to, a little bit further down. After all, if we view all minorities as formal equivalents, it seems presumptively unfair that one minority group should burden another in its efforts to advance. I refer to this phenomena of automatically overriding the claims of one minority group, blacks, through reference to the moral authority of the claims of another minority group, Asian Americans, as playing the racial trump card. Okay, so this was 2000. I didn't realize the word Trump would become quite so loaded. I didn't realize that this would have come to have a double meaning, that in fact this mode of deploying Asians would intersect with the phenomenon of Trumpism. But what you can hear in my words is a concern, right, about the dynamic that I identify and which I think has come to be in the Harvard case. Writing in 2010 in an article entitled People of Color Blindness, Jared Sexton discusses a phenomenon he calls people of color blindness, which he defines as a form of colorblindness inherent to the concept of people of color, to the precise extent that it misunderstands the specificity of anti-blackness, and presumes or insists upon the monolithic character of victimization under white supremacy. In a negrophobic society, Sexton argues, the fundamental divide is not between whites and non-whites, but rather between blacks and non-blacks, or between those whose abjection provides a foundation for the social order and those whose coherence and well-being are grounded upon that abjection. People of color, third world peoples, minorities, these are concepts that suggest equivalencies under white supremacy and to this extent obscure the way in which anti-blackness divides and differentiates non-whites.
So I'm gonna keep I'm gonna keep this short. I don't even want to comment. I just want to show. Give me a second because I got charts. Y'all, I love charts. I'm good for a chart. So I got a lot of stuff up here. So give me a second so I can click to find it. Boom. Vietnamese, 61,000 compared to Japanese, almost 600,000. Indians, 460. Chinese, 409. So them college degrees ain't helping them poor Vietnamese like that neither.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. So he said they're an inconvenient minority, not the Koreans and the Vietnamese. And they still have more money than us.
That's why I was about to ask where do we fall in that. I will
acknowledge that these numbers are a problem and they should be dealt with.
Yep, absolutely.
So just so everybody understands what I'm saying, the Koreans and the Vietnamese need some more money. We need to help them. But fuck these people of color up there because they got more money. This is white money. This is a little bit less than white money. White people got 355. Chinese got more money than whites. Indians got more money than whites. Japanese got more money than whites. So yeah, we're gonna go back to the video, but I just want to throw that up there since he brought the Vietnamese up because them college degrees ain't bringing money like they did to the Chinese and the Japanese. I wonder why. All right, let's keep going.
The American dream is real, and Asian Americans showed that critical race theory cannot be true. And because of this, Harvard University suppresses the story of Asian excellence by discriminating against them in the admissions process because they base their admissions process based off of this critical race theory language where blacks are at the top for racial equity and then Asians are at the bottom. So an inconvenient minority really tells this story about the place of Asian Americans in the fight for meritocracy.
Stop. Fuck this dude. I'm from the rip. Fuck this dude. All right, so let's be clear. Let's be clear about this, right? What he's saying, where this guy, a white guy, he'd be getting stomped out right now. We're gonna stomp him out. We're gonna stomp him out verbally and colloquially and rhetorically right now. And it's going to get bad for this dude. I can see it already. But what he's talking about with his folk being on the bottom, watch him. He's going to come for us. He's not going to come from the white legacies. Watch him. I guarantee you. I haven't seen this, but I guarantee you he's going to come for us and not come from the white legacy motherfuckers. All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, he said they're an inconvenient minority that learn English in less than a generation, like Italians, Germans, Polish.
Excellent point, John.
You have a white. You have a white immigrant story. Oh, so your story don't even make sense to even be mixed up and matched up with our story. Oh, the kind of discrimination you face is similar to Latinos or the Irish or the Polish being a new immigrant, not being a descendant of slavery in this country. Like, so this we already know he about to get into he about to get into his neo-Nazi shit.
Facts.
That's all I got. I already know what this. I already know what this is. That's all I got. I'm
Sam,
sorry.
you got anything before we go to Mud?
Go Mud first. Mud, you got anything?
No. I mean, we all see where this is going. He's obviously not going to talk about the white people. He's going to come for us and try to make it seem like we're talking about something that isn't really happening because Asians haven't experienced what we've experienced, or that he's going to make some like crazy like comparison, like they went through the same thing we went through and they were able to change their situation, which is completely not the story. Like, I mean, obviously we're going to get into it later and probably talk about how the bulk of them came later after the Civil Rights Act, how we've fought for them to come into the country and all of that shit, and now they're shitting on us. But you know, we all see where this is going.
Yep.
That's all I got.
Do we want to get into this whole legacy thing now, or do we want to do it at the end of the video? I'll let y'all choose.
Yeah, fuck, get it now. Shit, why John still here?
How elite U.S. schools give preference to wealthy and white legacy applicants. So instead of coming for the rich white people, you're coming for the poor blacks. And to be honest, ADOS people ain't getting into these Ivy League schools, no way. You really trying to take spots out of black immigrants' mouths, really, which makes me almost not want to talk about this. But let's just get back to it anyways. I'm just saying. So
Facts.
I'm going to skip over a lot of this stuff. Y'all can read the full article. I'm going to get to the meat. But let's get to where Beyond starts talking about legacy. She was talking about legacy preferences, a widespread and increasingly controversial factor in admission to top colleges. Many U.S. colleges admit legacies or students with a family connection to the university at dramatically higher rates than other applicants. They are widely seen as a reliable source of alumni donations. That's why they don't go after the white people, because they know if they do, the white people gonna stop putting that money into the schools, and they'll stop doing programs for people who graduate from there. So that's why they go after us instead of them. But let me get back to this. The alumni donations, they do tend to be white and they do tend to be wealthier, Beyond said in the interview. I think that's kind of unfair. At Harvard, the acceptance rate of legacy students is 33% compared with an overall acceptance rate of under 6%. So why are y'all coming after black people? This is basically saying that mediocre white kids whose parents went to these schools for generations are getting in. But you want to take the few little black spots, and there's not even that many black people going to these schools. And very few ADOS.
There's a lot going on there, Sam. First of all, is, you know, servicing who's in power, right? This is not like people like Yvette said. You don't come over here and get on the losing team, right? And we are quote unquote the losing team. So this whole I'm gonna kiss these white folks' ass in hopes that they won't come at us while we try to take over the country. You know what I mean? That kind of bullshit. And secondly, not secondly, but connected to that, we got to take a look at these Chinese folks. Like that story that came out that all these Chinese folks are funding the Proud Boys, right? Yep. They recognize that we're the number 2 minority in the country in numbers, right? And probably number 1 minority when it comes to contribution to the growth of this country, to where it is now. And they'd rather go at us because we have less power. And I'd like to say to all those folks that think like that, fuck you. All right? John, what you got, man?
Nah, as far as the legacy stuff, man, like, you know, exactly. Like they scared to attack these motherfucking white people because they know that's what the bread. You feel me? Because they got the power. They got the power in these institutions and when it comes, especially Ivy League institutions and stuff like that. So what you do is you punch down and say, you know what, Negro, you the reason, blah blah blah, instead of fighting against the people that really want to get rid of this shit. Because They see you as competition. You need to deal with
Isn't
the
that
white
the same
folks.
thing that they accuse us of doing with brown immigrants? Anytime we
Yeah.
try to stand up for ourselves, they say we're punching down. Why aren't y'all getting on Asians?
Word up.
Because they got more money than white people, but they're punching down on black people who are poor.
Because it's us against everybody. That's the bottom line. It is us against everybody. Nobody gives a shit. Mud, talk to us, Mud.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that you said, that everyone said. And I also want to add these components to it. If they challenge white people too much, they might start losing their preference as like the model minority and all that stuff.
Facts.
Word.
And then also, if they challenge those legacy positions, because they've been overrepresented, they also get, a piece of that action too. So their mediocre kids can get into college.
That's true. They probably got a lot of legacies now. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, because things change after you've been here for a while. So their offspring are not going to be the same as them. They're not going to have that same work ethic. They're going to be Americanized. So in a way, they want to get the same preferences that the mediocre white people are getting. And that's why they don't want to challenge the system. I mean, that's all I got to, add to this.
Yeah, and
no,
it is what it is. And culturally, that's how it works. All right, go ahead, Sam.
No, I just want to finish this last little piece of this paragraph. This is a Guardian article. Y'all can go back and read it. At Harvard, the acceptance rate, I'm going to reread that whole paragraph. At Harvard, the acceptance rate for legacy students is about 33% compared with an overall acceptance rate of under 6%. Countless powerful Americans have followed their relatives to elite universities. In 1935, when John F. Kennedy applied to Harvard, the first page on his application form asked where his father graduated from. Harvard, 1912, he wrote. He was admitted, though his academic record was not especially strong. In 1964, George W. Bush followed his father and grandfather to Yale despite his lackluster grades. Again, George Bush was a C- student.
Yeah, and that's with the curve because his family got money. Because I'm sure you can pay folks to take your test and do your papers when you got money. All right, let's ride, folks.
Okay, here we go.
How do you parse that given the different experiences? One population, brought in shackles and enslaved for several hundred years, and then suffered through almost a century of Jim Crow.
Sorry, I want to pause this. Can you hear Ryan Grimm stuttering? Because he can't believe what the fuck he heard. Because if he's understanding if a white person said this would have been a problem.
I heard that Ryan Grimm put him on his heels. I heard that. Yeah, somebody told me that about the video.
I'm gonna keep letting him go, but I'm just saying. You see it. See Ryan Grimm because if this was a white person saying this would be a. That's why they didn't put this on YouTube. Because if it was on YouTube, the comments would have been in shambles. Even white people would have been like, "This shit's racist."
Yeah, as they should. Is there a YouTube? Is there a comment space on this Hill article? Well, we'll talk about it later. Let's go.
Yeah, we can check at the end.
Followed by gains in the 60s and 70s, running smack into the deindustrialization of the economy, the decimation of public sector and union jobs and manufacturing jobs that had made up the bulk of the growth of black wealth, combined with a different and disparate experience among Asian Americans. How do you kind of separate out those two things and come to a conclusion, a broad conclusion there?
Well, I can give you the most
I don't even know what
the most victim-y Asian narrative I could possibly give you. I mean, so many of these Asian Americans who come here have literally fled from communism, from the Cultural Revolution, from Pol Pot, from dictatorships, from identity politics, and they've come here and they face discrimination in the United States, Chinese exclusion, Japanese internment, and yet they still achieve.
Oh, fuck this dude.
Wow.
Oh, fuck this dude with a railroad tie. Fuck you, Kenny Zhu.
Well, but you brought up the Japanese, but the Japanese got paid reparations.
Indeed.
So why do you bring them up when they were paid reparations? That's not a good example. And I guess
none of these are good examples.
I don't know if he got all the way through. He hasn't got to the riots yet, but I'm gonna jump ahead. We're gonna jump ahead of him. All right. Let's just jump ahead,
dude.
right?
He's not gonna dictate how we do our shit here. Fuck you. Let's go.
Let's talk about the Chinese Exclusion Act. Like how that's keeping them out of the country. That's not something harming them in the country.
Exactly.
Like how do you add that into the mix?
Yeah, because he's talking about stuff that happened to them, right? Yeah.
Hey, bud, can you break it down a little bit, or do we have anything on it, Sam? On the Chinese Exclusion Act?
It's simple. Go ahead, Mud. You can just give us simple, because it's on here. Because I'm gonna go through their timeline.
Yeah, I mean, I forget what the dates are, but I think
you don't have to get the dates because it's in the timeline. We'll get the dates a little bit later.
Okay. Yeah. But basically, it was an.
But it was before the 1900s.
Yeah, I was saying that they couldn't immigrate into the country. That I mean, that's. How's that harming them in the country? I don't understand that.
It's not.
I get, like you might say it's discriminatory as far as immigration is concerned, but that's not an actual harm to like Chinese American citizens because they aren't allowed in the country.
Damn, I'm gonna go back a little bit on that one. That was good, Mud.
That's a good point, Mud. All right, let's go. Let's ride.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back just a little bit because that was good, Mud. And let me turn the volume back up because I
face discrimination in the United States, Chinese exclusion, Japanese internment, and yet they still achieve. What we always try to posit the worst victim narrative that we could, and you just did for Black Americans, but I could do the same for Asian Americans.
So how should we think about the structuration of race? What kind of sociometric analysis could we pursue? These are the questions that animate my current book project, Asian Americans in an Anti-Black World. I'm going to try to take just a little slice of the book to present to you before we move on with affirmative action. Okay, so my departure point is Lewis Gordon's discussion of the two principles shaping the U.S. racial order. Be white, but above all, don't be Black. White is best, but the most important thing is not Blackness. Blackness, Gordon writes, is the point from which the greatest distance must be forged. So, building upon Gordon, we can say the racial order is structured first and foremost by anti-Blackness, the abjection of Blackness, and secondarily by white supremacy, the valorization of whiteness. Asian Americans, I argue in my book, are positioned at that tense conjuncture between anti-Blackness and white supremacy, where the elevating force of being not Black meets the downward force of being not white. Despite significant and persistent inequalities among Asian American groups, even the worst off among them have something, in James Baldwin's words, something to lose, namely their not Blackness in an anti-Black society. So let me make this a little more concrete by discussing the original Asiatic in the American imagination, the Chinese immigrant laborer in the 1800s. Yes, everything always goes back to the Chinese immigrant labor, everything in Asian American studies anyhow, where we can see how not Blackness was constitutive of the very concept of the Asiatic from the start. What we see in each of the three Chinese labor stories of the 19th century that I briefly touch upon in my book, Chinese wage labor in California, Chinese contract labor in the US South, Chinese indentured labor in Cuba, is that Chinese presence was always predicated on Black absence. As we learned from Nadia Aram-Hario, Edley Wang, and Moon Ho Zhang, Chinese migrants came to California because it was a free state that prohibited slavery and thus had an enormous demand for labor. They were transported to Cuba as part of the coolie trade that sprang up to take the place of the declining global slave trade. And they were transported into the South in the wake of the Civil War to help lock down Black economic and political subordination. Global racial meanings shaped and were shaped by these global labor flows under capitalism. Both Western and Asian ethnological science placed Asiatics close to or near Europeans or with Europeans at the top of the scale, and Africans close to apes at the bottom of the scale. Asiatics were indisputably part of the family of man, and by the 1860s, China was formally welcomed into the family of nations as well, as indicated by the signing of the 1868 Burlingame Treaty with the US. Okay, and here Thomas Nast's famous portrait, the youngest introducing the oldest, and we see America introducing China to the rest of the family of nations. Note the absence of African leaders in this drawing, reflecting the widespread view, memorably voiced by Hegel, that Africans were marooned in time with the beasts of the jungle, lacking both civilization and history. The black was indeed the absent referent in white imaginings of the Chinese. It was the not blackness of the Asiatic, as well as their inability to vote, that made them the ideal substitute for black labor, the answer to the problem of slavery's demise. So I suggested that Asian Americans are positioned where the elevating force of not being black meets the depressing force of being not white. Does this mean that they are, in some sense, in between black and white? Not quite.
Listening to Reset Race, you now tuned in to Reset Race. You're listening to Reset Race, you're now tuned in to Reset Race. What? Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them, put them back on the grill again. We grilling them, put them back on the grill again. We grilling them, back on the grill again. We grilling them, You're listening to Reset Race. ADOS need reparations to make America great. You're tuned in to Reset Race. We no longer starving while others eat off our plate. No. You're listening to Reset Race. We focused on our justice claim. We know what is at stake. You're tuned in to Reset Race. You'll find out who really about justice and really who fake. Lineage go back to US Southern plantations. Lineage, Jim Crow and mass incarceration. Redline and lynchings. We are old from this nation. You're not about justice if you ain't for reparations. MG the wise one. Cousin mother intellectual. Samantha bringing fire. Anti-black, we pressing you. No permanent friends and no permanent enemies. The backbone of the country. To win, you need our energy. Go on, see. Listening to Reset Race. You now tuned in to Reset Race. You're listening to Reset Race. You're now tuned in to Reset Race. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Back on the grill again. We grilling them. You're listening to Reset Race. ADOS need reparations to make America great. You're tuned in to Reset Race. We no longer starving while others eat off our plate. No. You're listening to Reset Race. We focused on our justice claim. We know what is at stake. You're tuned in to Reset Race. You'll find out who really about justice and really who fake.
Until you do right by me, everything you think about is gonna crumble.
Negroes should do whatever is necessary to bring about a complete solution to their problem. When I say whatever is necessary, they should have the flexibility to do whatever is necessary to solve the problem.